What's going on, everybody? We are back. We got episode number 43 of the Club and Sub podcast. We are rapidly approaching episode 50. Maybe we'll do something fun for that. Tonight, you got myself, John Stoliarenko at MMA Fox, Luke at SWR_betting, Lags at Lags_the Capper. As usual, we're brought to you by Bet Online. If you're not with them, you should be. They are the best MMA book by far. They open their lines first. They open their props first. You can get a 50% bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000 with the promo code CLUBSUB, betonline.ag. Now, please, everybody, I'd love it if you could all drop a like and subscribe if you have not. If you have subscribed and you like the show, please share it with your friends, anybody else who knows MMA gambling. Let's just take last week for an example. If you went to betmma.tips and you scroll to Gloria DePaula versus Jinyu Fry, you would see just about everybody and their mother, every tout and their mother, back Gloria DePaula. You know what podcast did not? Nobody on the Club and Sub podcast did. The only tout on the Club and Sub podcast, Luke, bet Jinyu Fry. I bet Jinyu Fry. I'm not saying we're better than everybody else. Those are not my words. You can interpret what I'm saying however you want. What I am saying, though, is we avoid a lot of the landmines that most people miss. Honestly, if you listen to us and you've made money, please subscribe, share the podcast. And if you think we suck and you fade us every week, please share the podcast and keep fading away. We're here for it. We love it. And we're going to keep bringing you guys plus CV bets every single week. Every single person on this podcast has a plus record. Every single person on this podcast is up money in 2021. So, yeah. Anyway, with that said, we have a fun card ahead this weekend. It is not the most stacked card, top to bottom, but there's some fun fights, and there is a lot of spots that I like for betting, and I think we all like for betting. So, yeah, let's get into it. Yeah, the Song and Dong bet, not great. But, nonetheless, like I said, fade away. We'll hop right into it. With that in mind, we got JP Baze taking on Bruno Silva. I hopped in on Silva last week at plus 200 for about 2 units. I personally think you can still play him here. I know it kind of probably feels dirty playing plus 125 when he was out there for plus 200 for a couple weeks. But the truth of the matter is, Bruno Silva, in my opinion anyway, should be a slight favorite. You know, he's coming off a fight with Tagir Ulanbekov, and in that fight, I would rate Ulanbekov's grappling better than Baze. Perhaps he is not as dangerous as Baze is, but, you know, nonetheless, I think he's a better wrestler. And frankly, I think he's a little bit harder. While he may not be as good on top, he's a lot harder to kind of break the control like a lot of those Dagestani guys are. And yet Silva was able to scramble with him, no problem. Kept that fight close, was only controlled for 3 minutes, and actually was able to control Ulanbekov for 2.5 minutes. On the other side, you know, we have JP Baze coming off Tuesday Night Contenders, quick finish. He's pretty talented. Like, I don't hate the kid. You know, he's a pretty good wrestler. He's a dangerous submission threat. He hits hard, but he's also very hittable. The two, you know, when we saw him take a step up last time he was on Contenders against Joby Sanchez, who was a decent fighter, he completely faded away after the first round, gassed out, got finished in that fight. He's looked pretty bad when he's been on bottom. You know, he fought a guy named Gamzat Magomedov regionally a couple fights ago. This is pretty recent. The guy was 2-0, and he looked great early in that fight. Round 2, though, he started slowing, got put on bottom, and basically looked like he was ready to quit, and then got hit in the back of the head, fight got stopped. I'm not going to suggest anything, but let's just say JP probably wanted out of that fight. I just kind of look at this and I'm pretty confident Silva's a better striker. Like, Baze could probably damage him standing, but he's not nearly as defensively responsible. I think Silva can scramble with him okay. And, you know, while everybody's kind of giving the upside to Baze in terms of wrestling, I think Silva can probably land takedowns here. And given what we've seen Baze on bottom, plus his gas tank, I just don't really get it. You know, Silva's had a bunch of close fights with good fighters in the UFC. He went to a draw with Casey Kenny. Baze has fought virtually nobody. Baze has fought virtually nobody. And yet, here we are. He's a favorite here. So, yeah, I'm on Bruno Silva. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, you pretty much hit all my points. I'm not going to lie. I'm not as in love with Bruno Silva here, but it's more so just a play based on pure line value and potential, you know, fade on the Dana White Contender Series guy in Baze, because I mean, those are the two big fights to hit on, were the Joby Sanchez fight and the Magomedov fight, where doesn't look very good on bottom, to be honest. And I really question his gas tank, and I'm not necessarily convinced that he can just push that grinding base pace for 15 minutes. And then you touched on too, Silva is a black belt. So, I'm not necessarily sold on that Baze just runs him on the ground and subs him either. I more so see it as a, competitive, scrappy based fight where I'm backing a guy for a unit at plus 173. He didn't get as good of a number as John. But in those type of spots, I kind of classify them as bets I'm willing to lose just because I don't think Baze should be this big of a favorite. Like I said, I think Silva can make this a scrappy fight. I think he does have finishing upside, has fought the better guys, and has some stylistic components of the fight that I think can make it tricky for Baze. And I think you hit on a really good point too, that a lot of people gloss over and maybe people didn't go back. Homeboy went strike for strike with Casey Kenny. I know we're not the biggest Casey Kenny guys on this podcast, but at the end of the day, the guy's had a pretty solid run in the UFC, has some decent hands. Wasn't a ton of grappling in that fight, actually, to be honest. A lot of strikes being thrown. So in terms of like overall attrition over the course of the fight, I do think we're going to see a lot of grappling. But in terms of the stand-up too, I do think Silva actually has the better hands and has more attrition volume upside late in that scrappy type based fight. So once again, not as high on the play, but more so just a play based on the numbers where I'd rather back the more battle tested vet who's had a much tougher run. And I think it's a good time to jump in on him at an incorrect line.
Lex, have you?
Yes, I have a unit and a half here on Silva as well at plus 188, and I'll keep it pretty short this week because you guys touched a lot of main points. But this is similar to what you touched on in the beginning of the pod, John, with New Frey and DePaula. I mean, we're getting a UFC proven guy. He's been close, competitive with other solid UFC competition against the newcomer who he's mostly steamrolling pretty hot garbage on the EFC scene. So big dog number, willing to take the risk here, obviously.
Yeah, I love it. We move on. We have, I don't even know if I'd call it fun. It could be fun, or it could be boring as all fuck. We got Julia Avila taking on Jolija Stoliarenko. Legs, I think you have a play here, right?
I do not, but I was going to mention to you before we started the last fight that I think they switched the order around on ESPN. It looks like the Avila fight is opening night.
Whatever.
But
we're just gonna
whatever. Yeah, so pretty much I think the fight kind of plays down to, is it going to hit the mat at all? Is Stoliarenko going to be able to get a sub? I would say no. I kind of think of it as going to be able to dictate, wherever this fight goes. I think she's probably going to be able to get a knockout here because I think she's going to be able to keep this fight standing. And yeah, I think it's an early knockout for Avila.
Yeah, I agree. Mostly, I kind of think, I haven't made a play on it, but I think the under a plus money is pretty good. I think Avila ITD probably pretty good. I guess the concern for me with playing Avila is more, we haven't seen a ton of Avila on top. She's looked good from what we've seen, but Stoliarenko, while I think her process is terrible and will likely lead to her being out of the UFC pretty quick, she is dangerous if you're not really tight up there. I'm guessing Avila is based on what we've seen, but I don't really know that for a fact. But that said, I don't think Stoliarenko could take her down. And if Avila is smart, she's just going to stand there and let go of bombs. So, yeah, I think Avila ITD is nice. I think the under is nice. I'm kind of looking at that. But I think the two most likely outcomes in this fight are Avila finish or Stoliarenko armbar, to be honest. Like, I'd be a bit surprised if Avila kind of goes the honor route and just clinches with her for 15 minutes. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, so actually I do have a play on this one. I have Avila as a second leg of a parlay with Aljo and Jan over 2.5 from the other week to close out 2 units at plus 104. Think it was a really great spot, and I think it's a really great spot for Avila. The thing with Stoliarenko, I kind of classify her as a girl who falls into the Mark De La Rosa syndrome, a grappling-based fighter who just doesn't have any offensive wrestling upside, is scrappy on the feet, but also consistently gets outlanded on the feet, doesn't really have any power or finishing components. So when you extrapolate all of that, how do they win fights? Well, yes, she's pulling guard. She's getting into these funky transitions where she's armbarring all these girls. But man, she's armbarring some very, very low-level girls in doing that. And I think it's actually one of the few instances of, we talk about it all the time with, WMMA knockouts. But I think this is a very standing TKO type scenario that is very, very in play here. I will say that Stoliarenko is a super tough girl, has taken a ton of shots over the course of her career, hasn't been finished from what I recall. But Avila is a girl who pushes a pretty decent pace, lets her hands go. I still think her technical acumen is a little, green. But at this level, I think it's enough where just volume-based attrition has some pop in her punches, can finish the fight. However, after even making all the official play I made and then chucking her in a ton of degen stuff, I did watch an interview with her. It sounds like she's might be taking this to the ground, which is a tad concerning. That's not to say that I don't think she can be defensively responsible, because I think she can. She is a brown belt herself. But in doing so, that's legitimately going to give Stoliarenko her best opportunity to succeed, because that's the only thing she's ever finished by armbar. And just one other quick side point. Stoliarenko did get outlanded by 20 strikes by Leah Letson on her fight. I just think that's a little concerning here. Everything just points Avila to me, but if she just comes out here and like takes her down, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be sweating kind of what I played, because I think it's a pretty bad game plan. Just in general, like I said, I still think she can win the fight that way. Maybe even sub Stoliarenko, to be honest, but I think she should just keep this fight standing and beat this girl up on the feet. That's her best path. Attritional TKO. I think her TKO line is like plus 380. I poked that as well. Recommended that in my prop section. I think it's a good fight for Avila, but after listening to that interview, I'm sweating just a tad.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's why I don't listen to interviews, though. And Avila can crack for a chick. Like, Sarah Eubanks is pretty freaking durable, and she was hurting her on the feet when that was that range. But yeah, we move on. And I would have started with you last time, Luke, if I knew you had to play. For whatever reason, our group chat made it seem like Lags had to play, and you didn't. So we move to the next fight. And I'll start with you here. We got Montel Jackson taking on Jesse Strader. I haven't really looked at Strader much, so I don't have much of an opinion. Luke, you take it away.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid fight for Jackson, as the odds indicate. If you've been watching this podcast for a while, you guys know we're not necessarily the biggest proponents of Mr. Jackson. Cashed a nice big ticket on Brett Johns in his last outing. But what I will say, Jesse Strader is not Brett Johns. Jesse Strader is not Ricky Simone, who are Montel's two L's, where he's been wrestled to death. Strader's kind of I think a decent regional scene come forward, big guy, compact, power puncher, a lot of hooks type of deal, has some knockouts over some lower level guys. But I guess the best way I could classify him is one that I think he's really slow, and then he's hook reliant, and he can be wrestled and out grappled as well. His only loss did come against Marcelo Rojo, who we just saw the other week against Jordan. Put up a decent fight, all things considered. Was a close fight up until the latter bits of it, and when Jordan took over. So can't take anything away from me here, but I guess the best way I can describe the fight is it's kind of a levels fight. For me, I took some personal shares on the Jackson inside the distance on the early line. I think he's probably live for a knockout here. Not that Jackson, is the biggest power puncher in the world, but I just think Strader is so slow and so defensively flawed that a guy in the size of Jackson, a couple stinging shots, can put him down. Also, if Strader, starts to get sloppy, I do think Jackson is live for Darce Anaconda, situations, and is just the better grappler here. So I think it's a great fight for Jackson. If you are to play it, I say target inside the distance.
Lags, anything for you here?
Not a super strong take here, but I will say we touched on it a little bit before the pod. It seems like a lot of books really mispriced the under 2.5, and the fight doesn't go the distance. That kind of went from minus 105 to out to 250 now, so it's kind of a little interesting. But
yeah, the only thing I'll say is this: what I hope comes out of this fight is the UFC giving Jackson a couple bumps he can roll over a couple times in a row, and then maybe we get something like Montel minus 200 against like Tony Gravely or someone like that. My feelings on Jackson before and after this fight haven't changed much. Until I see him beat someone who can hit a double leg, I will continue to be unimpressed. We move on. We got Trevon Giles taking on Ramon Lise. I just bet Trevon Giles right before we went live here.
Nice.
I bet him plus 125 for a unit and a half on DraftKings Sportsbook. That line is still there if anybody has access to that book. Basically, I wanted a better line. I actually went on Kelton's show last night and mentioned that, but it looks like the rest of the market's dropping here. And frankly, I don't really see a good reason for Trevon Giles to be a dog. Look, I said it to Lags earlier in the week that, like, I wanted to bet Giles if he was less Trevon Giles-y. I'm still worried about that. He's flaky. I don't think he's a bad grappler, but he does a lot of really dumb shit in the grappling. He can be low volume. But ultimately, like, I just look at the fight and it's like, where is he, like, considerably worse than Dawson at? Like, I don't think Dawson is a great wrestler. He's an okay wrestler. Could probably hit takedowns. But I think, Giles can be competitive there. And, like, these heel hooks Dawson keeps rolling for, so far they haven't bit him in the ass, but Giles is the kind of guy that if he does that, he's going to end up getting mounted and pounded on. Ultimately, like, between the level of competition that Giles has faced, the experience gap, the fact that I do think he can be competitive in the grappling, and just kind of the general lack of standing defense from Lise, I just have to favor Giles here. So I took a unit and a half, plus 125. Luke, how about you? Wags, how about you?
I think he's out at the moment. So it's kind of a weird fight to me. Like, honestly, I don't mind Lise, but I'm not a big fan of the line. Like, if I was getting like minus 110 on him, I wouldn't mind it. But I think the big two questions for me here are, and they kind of, relate to one another. The cardio of Lise, because, obviously we see in every fight that kind of tampers away. And then two, this fight's down at 185. He's moving down from 205 to 185. So those two things together is kind of enough for me to, stay off. But I think personally, he's just a bigger, stronger guy, and I think he might be able to out-grapple Giles and keep him on bottom, but we'll see.
We'll see. Luke, how about you? Trevon Giles, Roman Lise.
Yeah, I don't really hate the Giles play, but I don't know. To me, it's kind of yeah. I get it. Like, let me put it this way: if I was to bet the fight, I'd bet Giles at the plus number. I think that's the value bet here, just because I'm not overtly high on Lise. I still think there's a lot of question marks about his game, largely an early finisher. I thought it was at least encouraging to see him in an extended fight, see him wrestle more. It was over John Alon. Say what you want about that. But I think we still at least learned a little bit more about Lise in terms of his game. I guess the problem with Giles is he's a guy who I just don't think steps on the gas enough in his fights, and I think he has relatively poor fight IQ. Even go back to the Mearshart fight, engaged him in a scramble fest. Obviously didn't get subbed right away. Eventually got subbed, but it's play stupid games, get stupid prizes. Personally, I thought he lost the fight to Kraus. I thought that fight was scored poorly. Got taken down, got his back controlled. What I will say is largely he is defensively responsible. I know he did get submitted by Cummings, but that was more of a club and sub type deal as well. So what I will say is I don't think Dawson subs him. Giles does have 80% takedown defense, but there have been issues, I would say, with Giles's grappling historically. So I do think there is a scenario where Dawson does get top time in this fight. But if it's standing, I just largely seeing it be a pretty close fight. And I guess my question is, I don't know how Giles is going to approach it necessarily. Is he going to be?
Luke's frozen. Luke is frozen. Okay. So we're gonna move on here. We're gonna go. And
I think overall, just Giles has questionable fight IQ. I think that's what he's getting. I think it's what he's getting to. So
I bet Giles against GM3, and I was right. Luke, you were frozen for the last about 45 seconds, but it's cool. But yeah, I mean, I bet him against GM3, and like Luke was touching on it. I think it's less that he has grappling issues, that he's kind of panicky. He will make. I've seen him make good decisions, but I've also seen him make terrible decisions when things have gotten dicey, and so we'll see. So we move on. We got good fight in the lightweight division. Got Grant Dawson taking on Leo Santos. I actually took a 0.25 unit poke at Santos plus 1,600 round one KO here. I'm actually thinking about playing the Dawson money line as well, to be honest. Pretty much, to me, and the reason I poked it is I don't know how Dawson's going to approach this fight. We very often see grapplers who face high-level jiu-jitsu guys who are terrified to, go for takedowns and go into their guard. And I kind of, I think if Dawson does that, look, we all know that Dawson is extremely hittable. I've gone back and forth on him over and over again because I like his grappling a lot. But also, I bet him against Trezano, and the second round of that Trezano fight before he kind of landed him out was pretty scary. And, Santos hits a lot harder than Mike Trezano hits. He probably hits harder than Julian Erosa does. And so if it's something where Dawson stays there and looks to just kind of kick and strike from distance early, I think a KO is very, very in play. That said, I do think I'm thinking of playing Dawson money line, especially if it crosses minus 185, because I do think he's likely to grapple because his stand-up's so bad. And, for as many issues as Dawson has, he's got an excellent top game. I'd be pretty surprised if he got subbed from bottom here. I kind of think his pace and his grappling is probably enough that he could dominate this fight wire to wire if he goes for it, especially with Santos being 42. But, yeah, so I have a poke on Santos. I might play Dawson. We'll see. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. If he kind of crosses that minus 185 mark, I capped him 70%, minus 233. So that's kind of where I'm looking to, potentially jump in. It's such a weird fight because I've always been pretty low on Dawson. I bet Narimani had a big number against him. But honestly, I've kind of done a bit of a 180 on the guy, not in the sense, well, one, I still think his stand-up is horrible. I still think he's extremely hittable. He's probably liable to get knocked out at some point. Could get sparked here in the first round. Wouldn't be shocked at all, to be completely honest. Santos, multiple first-round finishes, better striker, in my opinion, not super high output, but the better striker. But I do think it's a scenario where, you have the traditional strong wrestler versus, strong grappler. I respect, the game of Santos in that regard, but he's also not a guy who's subbing a ton of people. And I do feel like Dawson can be positionally responsible on top. And I largely just see a grinding based decision. So that's why it's tough. Cause originally I was thinking maybe, under 2.5 in that regard that, maybe Santos slows late and he actually Dawson can sub him. But it's like, man, I don't know about that either. I guess if I was to play it, I think Dawson on the money line is probably the way to go. But yeah, I'm with you, John. I just don't love the price yet. I'd like a little bit better of a number just because I still can't get in my head how bad his striking defense is. And it is a step up. It is a step up against a battle-tested vet. So we'll see. But I like Dawson.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, see, I think let's talk about this fight. And we'll probably touch on it later too. I think the bookies are getting, a lot of these lines right, like prop wise and just total wise in general. It's because we're looking at this fight in general, Dawson by decision, which I think that's largely what this could play out to be, plus 110. You're not really getting any meat on the bone there, so I don't think it's a great. Should be parlaying Dawson here, I think. But if there's anything I like Dawson decision,
yeah, I'll say this. Just to kind of give also more credence to what Luke was saying, and both of you, about not playing the under. Dawson's positionally KO'd a lot of guys. I think it's pretty safe to say he's probably not subbing Santos, and I also think the Santos cardio narrative might be a bit overblown. Like that last fight, he completely emptied the tank against Bogotov in round 2, trying to finish him. And then round 3, he ate 2 nut shots and an illegal knee to the head. Like, the guy was basically getting beaten with a pipe. It was the equivalent of, in the third round of that fight. So it's I'm not saying he's got good cardio, but I do think it's it's probably not as bad as it looked against Bogotov. So
Dawson pushes a strong pace, though, man.
He does, but Santos also has good. Couldn't you see Santos just having good guard retention there, and it just ends up being something where Dawson can't do much damage from guard and just end up on top of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's ultimately why I was off the under 2.5 for that point exactly, because I do think Santos can recover guard. I think it's just going to be that positional game. He's going to try to pass. He might pass guard retention, but Dawson top time.
Yeah, if Dawson is mounting Santos over and over, my view on him is his stock in my eyes will dramatically go up if he's easily carving through Leo Santos' guard. But anyway, we move on. We have not the most fun fight ever. Got Marion Renault taking on Macy Chiasson. You know, this entire card, I could somehow talk myself into every fight except this one. Luke, what do you got?
I want to play Marion, if I'm being completely honest. I really do. I really do, but I can't. I can't do it. I don't like the price. I'm going to be pretty steadfast in saying I want closer to plus 200 to play Marion. If it gets there, I'm more than happy to do it. The problem with Marion is that she can take damage on the feet, and she's so inconsistent in terms of when she lets her hands go. But when she does let her hands go, she looks good. It's just so inconsistent because I do think she's a girl whose boxing has improved, and Macy's striking defense is pretty horrible. She just comes forward, wings big shots, looks to work her clinch game, work her grappling in whatever capacity, that there is, and then she's looked decent when she's on top, but she's also been grounded by girls like Lena Landsberg, who's a Muay Thai girl who really has no historic wrestling or grappling upside either. So it's really a funky fight in general that I'm very curious to see actually how both girls approach it. Is Macy going to go to the clinch, which is what I think she should do? We have seen Marion get beat up there. Granted, that was, against Raquel Pennington, levels a little bit different, but Macy is a big girl. I think that's probably her path to close the distance, beat her up in the clinch. But on top, I'm not honestly, I do think this is a scenario where Renault is very live for a guard sub or a triangle or something like that. She also has swept a lot of girls. I don't think Macy's like overtly positionally sound on top. It's more so the fact that girls haven't had a ton of, process of what to do when on bottom. So I don't like Renault could sweep her and get on top of her as well. Once again, maybe a bit lower percentage, but in terms of the overall boxing perspective, both girls are going to eat some shots, but actually from a technical perspective, I actually do think Renault is the better boxer. I just don't know if she's going to let her hands go, and she is at a size deficiency here too. So I don't know, man. I've just historically been, low on both girls from a betting perspective, but I do just have, not necessarily Gloria DePaula Frey flashbacks, but I do feel like this is a very live vet lesson type of spot here. So I'm actually going with the dog here in Renault, but no extreme confidence based on how either girl approaches the fight.
Yeah, Lex, how about you?
Pass.
Yeah, so I guess for me, I was like somewhat first time was both coming down on where Luke is now. I think the problem for me and why I'm not betting it is just like the confidence interval for the fight. Like Marion Renault at 35, I'd be betting here in a heartbeat. Probably making a big bet at this number, to be honest, in a heartbeat. But it's like, what is she? 43, 44 now. It's like we're kind of reaching
44, yeah.
Yeah, so like we're reaching a point where like one of the next few fights, it's going to go all go, and she is going to get bludgeoned. And like we saw part of that against, Pennington, and she looked good for portions of that fight. But look, I'd say Rocky's a physical girl, but she's not this aggro beast like Jessica Andrade-esque who like pins girls to the fence and just bludgeons them in the clinch. And like what she did to to Marion there was really concerning to me. It makes me think Chiasson's probably going to be able to do the same thing here, even though I think skill for skill, Renault is a much better fighter, like pretty much wherever the fight takes place. I just kind of think young girl who's probably getting better, even if she isn't that good and is big against 44-year-old, wouldn't shock me if Renault pulled it out. Kind of to your point, Luke, I think she could really screw Macy up if Macy does try to get this to the mat. But I'm just going to pass on someone who's 44. I do think the value's on Renault. It's just like one of those things where it could be on her, or she could be washed and Macy could look fine as 500. So it's a pass for me. We move on. We have back to fun fights here. We have another chick fight. We got Cheyenne Baze taking on Monserra Ruiz. Luke, I know you did some hard work on this. I'm going to let you take this away.
Yeah, so very, very interesting because, we got a WMMA, a Dana White's Contender Series debutantes. Always just traditionally pretty, spotty type of spots, but I actually do think it's a really, really good fight for Baze as a longtime Invicta viewer. I have watched Montserrat Ruiz a decent amount. She actually only has one fight in Invicta, but I think I've watched tape on this girl like 3 times. overall, and it's just not pretty. If I'm being honest, the best way I can classify her, she's short. I think she's 5 feet tall with a 61-inch reach. Will come forward sparingly, but can get backed up easily. No striking defense, no real process to her stand-up. Is solely reliant on head and arm throw takedowns. I've never seen her hit a double. I've never seen her hit a single. I've never seen her hit a trip. She's solely reliant on getting girls down via these head and arm throws, and we've seen kind of that song and dance before where it can work, over lower level girls. I'm not saying Baze is, the bee's knees, but what I will say is that in terms of the girls who have shot on her takedown defense is largely held up. So the big fight I looked at in terms of Baze was when she fought Demopoulos. Obviously, Demopoulos really presents no offensive wrestling upside, but is a black belt, more so of a back player, guard player. She looked absolutely fine on top of Demopoulos. Demopoulos never even really got close to sniffing a sub there at all. Ruiz, I believe, trains out of the 10th Planet system. I'm unsure of what her rank is, but trains out of King's MMA too. Has a sick neck tat, looks like a pretty tough chick, but I just really don't value her game at all. I feel like Baze just beats her up on the feet pretty bad. Baze isn't the biggest 115, but she does have a size, output, and aggression edge here. Ruiz is just one of these chicks who I think is solely reliant on head and arm throws. Me and our boy AMG were talking about this before she went and fought Janaisa Moranchin in Invicta. We're like, Moranchin's probably live if she doesn't get head and arm throwed. What does she do? She gets head and arm throwed and gets subbed with this, funky key lock from a Kesikatami position. It's like, what in God's name? So I don't know. But what I will say in terms of Ruiz, Chick has her only loss is to Danielle Taylor, who went 2-3 in the UFC, who never outpaces anybody. If you're familiar with the game of Danielle Taylor, outpaced and outboxed Ruiz. So I think it's a great spot for Baze. Am I chucking her in my parlays at minus 400? I don't know, but honestly, I do think it's justified. I think it's a great spot for her because I think the win condition of Ruiz is just so limited here.
Yeah, Luke, before I throw out to Lags, you said that Cheyenne is not that big for strawweight. Dude, that girl is Dairy Queen thick. I don't know what you were talking about. Lags, what do you think?
No. I thought he was talking about Ruiz being not that big. But
we're talking about Ruiz?
Yeah.
Well, I still don't think Baze is that big. Is she?
I don't know, man. That girl's got ass for days.
Well, y'all been looking at the Instagram too much.
Lags,
might have to take another peek. But.
Yeah, so just like I was talking about earlier about the bookies having lines, right? I think buys by decision here is minus 170. I think that's probably a solid spot here. I mean, 80% of her wins come by decision. And Ruiz seems like a tough chick. That's probably how I would look. I wouldn't 4-1 on a girl with 6 professional fights, but minus 170, I like that.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's true. I'm fading JP and talking about his wife. That's could be dangerous. So South Africans are not people to fuck with. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't know how to feel about Cheyenne Baze because it's on the one hand, the first thing I always talk about looking for in female fighters is physicality, and she is extremely physical for a 115er. She goes forward, fires into the clinch, she'll throw very, very hard. But I don't really think she's very good at anything at all. So, but yeah, so I don't really have – I think she's probably decided here. I didn't look too hard at this. But, I'm not going to bet a girl coming off Contenders against a girl with twice as many fights. That's just kind of where I come down on it. Now, will I throw maybe some kind of a lottery parlay out there that includes her? Maybe. But I'm not ready to play her at all.
Take my decision, John. And parlay.
That's how you should play her.
I do have a bet on this next fight. I've got Max Griffin, Song Kanan. I bet Max Griffin at minus 160 here for 2 units. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much just think, look at Max Griffin's career. Look at the guys he's fought. He's 4-6. And, I kind of think it's kind of similar to Bobby Green, that if you ran Griffin's career back 100 times, this would be on the lower end of the spectrum of outcomes. The only guy to really wash him out is Colby Covington, and that was his first fight of his career in the UFC. Like, that is a hell of a debut to get thrown at you. And, other than that, he was basically in a 50-50 fight with Melender, a 50-50 fight with Oliveira. He probably would have won the Morono fight if he didn't get head kicked at the end of round 2. And so it's like, I look at Griffin, and I like what he does. Look, he's got some athleticism deficiencies, but he's got good movement, especially side to side, good jab, solid boxing. And lately he's developed, I wouldn't say a great wrestling game, but, a capable wrestling game where he can land takedowns in volume. And Kenan on the other side, you look at who this guy's beating. I mean, Callan Potter, Derek Krantz, he went life and death with. I mean, that was – you can make an argument Krantz won that fight. Like, it is honestly – Krantz gassed out after dominating round 2, if I recall correctly, in that fight. And, you compare their 2 fights with Morono, and Morono – I mean, he looked like an all-world striker against Kenan in that fight because Kenan he moves linearly. If you move around him at all, there's nothing he can really do about it. And so I kind of feel like the same thing's going to happen here that happened with Morono. Either Griffin could just take him down literally whenever he wants, or I think he could just stay on his bike and just outbox him with relative ease, kind of similar to the Brahimaj fight, to be honest. I think Kenan has a strike, is kind of similar. He could knock him out, but I struggle to see – outside of a fight where Kenan lands multiple knockdowns, how he wins a decision against Griffin here. Luke, how about you?
I'm 100% right there with you, man. I've never backed Max Griffin before. I have a lot of problems with his game historically, but that's why as a bettor, you need to be fluid with your opinions on guys and look at the individual matchups, because I think this is a great fight for Max Griffin, to be completely honest. And we saw that, in the line movement, I jumped in at, I think, minus 163. The big fight I want to hit on for Song is that Krantz fight, because in my opinion, if Krantz doesn't death gas and lose position in the 3rd round, Derek Krantz wins that fight, a wrestling-based decision fight, where both guys also death gassed, might I add. And then, like Griffin, you touched on a lot of good points too, John, where like he's been in a lot of competitive fights. Even go back and watch Mike Perry. Went out there and outboxed Mike Perry, didn't really get hurt. In my opinion, he actually won the Cowboy Oliveira fight. Not like a super bullish opinion. You can say what you want. Very, very close fight, but went out there, won the 3rd round against Oliveira. Also went out there, won the 3rd round against Morono after, eating a ton of damage in that 2nd round. Like, the guy's tough and has been fighting, a lot of good guys, where Song has just had a cupcake of runs in terms of his W's. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure all 4 guys that he's beaten in the UFC are no longer on the active roster. I could be wrong, but I think that's honestly the case. And so from like a stylistic perspective, I think Griffin has the better output. I think he's the better technical boxer. I largely think Song is reliant on a KO. And despite Griffin, not being this big wrestler, historically, his wrestling metrics are actually really great, and he's went to his wrestling more often in his most recent fights, and I think it's helped him in some capacity, and I think it's going to help him here too. So everything really points Max Griffin to me here, but the problem I have with Griffin historically is that the guy finds himself in a lot of close fights, is very hittable, which is why I'm not going heavier on him here, but in general, I do think it's a good fight for Max Griffin.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, I like Max here too, honestly. He's got a solid 5-inch reach here. I think he can play that outside game perfectly well. And just like John touched on, I think he can take that pretty much whenever he wants here. I'm just not really in love with the minus 200 price tag now. I just kind of got to it a little later. But again, same like I touched on earlier, the books are right with this as well. Him by decision is only like plus 120, I think. So,
yeah, agreed.
Yep.
And then we move on to a fun fight. What could be a really fun fight, depending how long it lasts. I'll start with you, Lise. Gustavo Lopez, Adrian Yanez.
Oh, man, you're skipping a fight. What are you doing? Tuivasa and Hunsucker.
No, that's next.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, I'm just looking at –
They put it up higher? Okay.
Topology.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I think this is pretty simple. I kind of just think these guys are just going to come to bang and stand in front of each other, and I think Yanez is the cleaner, crisper, technical striker here, and I think he's probably going to find himself winning a knockout here. I played the under 2.5 minus 145 for a unit. I mean, Yen is 9 of his 15 fights have ended inside the distance, and then Lopez 13 of his 17 inside the distance as well. So 69% average between the two. I like it.
Yeah, fair. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, this is a fun one because honestly, I actually really like both guys. Just in general, I think Lopez is just a tad undervalued from like a skill set perspective in general. Not necessarily in this fight. I actually do think the line movement towards Yanez is justified. And really, the reason I say that is because really the only time Yanez has struggled was in the Miles Johns fight where he fought in LFA for a title, a couple years ago. In my opinion, Yanez actually won the fight, where Johns was able to land a couple takedowns, one single, one double, but Yanez was able to pop up relatively quickly. The problem is that Yanez got stuck on the cage in that fight and kind of lost the optics in terms of how the judges perceived that. The fight did go to split as well. Miles Johns now in the UFC. And Lopez does have, some wrestling upside. Traditionally, I believe is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu as well, has some sub victories, can have some pop, his punches has some knockouts as well. Tough Mexican type dude, has been finished a few times, but I classify him as one of those dudes like you got to just like put out cold because like he's going to come, like he's going to come to bang and come to fight. And I think Yanez is as well. And so really the difference here for me is I don't think Lopez has that grinding wrestling nature to, I guess, make this fight closer in that capacity. I more so think if the fight is closer, it's more so based close on striking base exchanges. Yanez will fight with his hands down, does get hit, but I largely do think Yanez rolls with shots well. I just think he's the better striker here. Lopez has been dinged even more times outside of the times he has been knocked out, has been dinged in a couple other fights as well. I do think Yanez is live for a knockout. I definitely understand anybody who's giving credence to Lopez, like I said, because I do think the guy is just slightly undervalued in general. But I do think this Yanez guy is the real deal. I think the line's justified. I think he knocks Lopez out.
Yeah, it's weird because I actually don't think Lopez has much chance to have major grappling success, to be honest with you. I think Yanez's defensive grappling, at least what we've seen so far, is pretty good. But, Johns is, for whatever you say about Johns on top, he's a very good wrestler, like a takedown artist. And Yanez mostly held his own there. I think his get-ups are fine. What I will say is the Kyle Estrada fight worries me a lot because, like you said, he fights his hands down and he can get clipped. And so it's like Lopez, he's small, but the kid can crack a bit. Like he can hit pretty hard. And I think – Yanez isn't going to initiate the grappling. He's going to give him a kickboxing match. And yeah. I favor Yanez on minutes. I actually think he probably has slightly more finishing upside. But I do think Lopez is a bit live for a knockout. If the guy's going to have opportunities to hit Yanez, and he hits pretty hard. And so, I'm not overly eager to jump in here and play minus 230 on Yanez, nor am I really eager to play Lopez. I think – actually, Magic just posted in the chat, KO1 plus 1,700 for Lopez is actually pretty nice. And I guess the only way I would play Lopez, if it went to like plus 235, I would take a stab because I do think, striking fights are high variance enough and he hits hard enough that maybe that would be interesting. But it's a pass for me. Like, if you got Yanez below minus 200, good on you. It's a pretty good bet, I think. But I don't have anything here. We move on and we have – I had a bet here, and then Dontel Mays pulled out. We got Tai Tuivasa taking on Hudsucker.
What a name! What a name! What a name!
Yeah, man, I really don't have anything to say. I didn't tape Hunsucker, but we do know from his past fight. Who is the guy he just fought who just got beat? Vandera. Yeah, it's like I don't know, man. I think that kind of tells you all you need to know. Not the biggest Tuivasa supporter in the world, but I think he's definitely getting a lot easier of a fight now in this late replacement in Hunsucker than he is in or I should say that he was in Maze. So I think it's a good spot for Ty. I'm assuming Ty is going to be anywhere between minus 300, minus 400 in the spot. Do I say lay that on Ty? Absolutely not. Do I say that put Ty in your parlays? Absolutely not. It is still a heavyweight variance type fight. So I'm going with Ty. Probably knocks him out early. If you're going to play it, I'd target Ty KO or Ty KO early round 1.
Except you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well. I think if you're going to target this fight, I think KO round 1 is probably the smart thing to do here. Hunsucker, all 9 of his fights have ended inside the first round. So if you're going to degen anything, it's probably going to be like Ty minus 110 KO round 1. So
yeah, I mostly agree. I guess what I will say is what we have seen from Hunsucker is he'll go for it. He'll bite the mouthpiece, go forward, and throw heavy combos. He's not a heavyweight, though. And so it's like maybe we get D1 Tuivasa coming from AKA. That's here.
That would be phenomenal.
It would be. But, yeah, I mean, Tuivasa should win this fight. But, like I said, it's heavyweight, and, he is going to get in his face and swing, and Ty is not the most defensively sound guy ever in the world. So maybe if we do get a good number on ends in round 1, I'll take a poke. But, yeah, I don't know. I have more interest in fading Tai Tuivasa than ever backing money behind him. So so we move on. It's kind of ironic here because I talked up that Gloria DePaula thing at the start of the show, and now we have another bet that it seems like everybody is on, and this time we're all going to be on, I think, the same side as everybody else here. That's Gregor Gillespie. And look, I got minus 175 here, and I played it for 3 units. But to be honest, and I'm not a big juice player, I think there's value at the line now. I saw somebody talk about how Riddell held up against Malarkey, De Silva, and Mustafayev in the grappling today on Twitter. It's like, bruh, what are you talking about, dude? The levels between, I know his name is Mustafayev. The levels in the grappling between Gregor fucking Gillespie and Magomed Mustafayev there's multiple levels separating those guys here. And it's I saw this cool stat, and it's, 76% of Gregor Gillespie's fights have taken place in the grappling. Of that 76%, 99.5% has been controlled by Gregor Gillespie. Conversely, Brad Riddell has had 50% of his fights have had grappling involved. Of that 50% of time spent in the octagon, he has been controlled for over 70% of it. That should speak enough to it right there. But the bottom line is Alex Asilga and Magomed Mustafayev are closing distance without much issue in taking him down. If he gets in there, he may work up, but once Gregor's hands get locked, he's not getting off the fence. He's not getting out of his grasp. Gregor is in that tier of, and don't shoot me, but in terms of pure wrestling and grappling, he's probably too small to handle guys like Islam or Khabib. But as a wrestler, he's in that tier. The only reason he didn't go back-to-back as a national champion was Jordan Burroughs was there. That's it. Now, all of that said, he's extremely hittable, and Riddell could dead him. But what chance do you put on that here? I don't know. I guess it could happen. He didn't dead Jamie Malarkey, though. He hasn't deaded anybody in the UFC yet. It could happen. But if you tell me that Bradley Riddell is going to come out here, he's going to stuff takedowns, he's going to work up, he's going to win the underhook battle, if that happens, I'm going to view him as a future champion. I don't think that's going to happen. I think unless he KOs him early, he's going to wrap his hands around him and absolutely ragdoll him here. So, yeah, I think he should be -3, -400, to be honest. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. The best way to classify Gregor, obviously you talked about the hitability. Obviously that's there. I honestly really only think that's why, the line was originally set the way it was, coming off the knockout against Lee. Riddell, kickboxer, has some knockouts, but Riddell ain't knocking anybody out in the UFC. I think that's one interesting thing to say. And the big component of this fight and why I think it's interesting from your traditional, wrestler versus striker narrative. Well, traditionally, the wrestlers are the guys who are going to control the pace of the fight. And if you look at Gregor's metrics, they're absolutely insane. A crazy number I want to throw out. Any of his fights that have went longer than 5 minutes, any fight that has went past the first round, he has gotten at least 5+ minutes of control. That is absolutely unreal. So when you're talking about capping these fights and assessing win conditions, is Riddell the better striker here? Probably, yes. I think that's probably fair to say. Is obviously live in the KO scenario that the fight is standing on the feet. But if you really dig into the numbers of this fight, you have to look at how often is Riddell going to be at space in this fight. And he's going to be at space for such limited windows. Once again, this is also assuming that the fight goes 15 minutes and that it's extended, and Gregor doesn't just sub him or pound him out on the ground. If this fight's extended, does Riddell have any more than 5 minutes at space? I think that's kind of hard to say. I think that's probably being generous, if I'm being completely honest. So it's like, yeah, can Riddell KO him? Sure, I get that. But the opportunities he's going to have to do that are small. And you say, okay, well, Luke, just throw the KO out for 2 seconds. Well, Riddell wins the decision. Well, how is Riddell going to win a decision against Gillespie? Like, what percentage do you assign that to? So what's the win condition of Riddell? It's a KO, and it's more than likely early.
Yeah,
when he's fresh. So to be able to grab a guy like that in Gillespie, you touched on all the credentials, all the stats, fights, multiple data points suggest it's like how is Gillespie like around like minus 180, originally? It makes no sense to me. I concede your point too. I still think there is value on his line right now, all the way up to probably like minus 275. To be completely honest. So if you want to use him as a parlay piece, I think that's fine too. It's just Gregor's one of these guys who's going to be an absolute nightmare style matchup for 99% of the guys he fights, just based on his style.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, so I have 3 units on the side. I actually have 2 units on Gregor minus 180, and then I have a unit on the under 2.5 rounds at minus 112. So yeah, I mean, I think the problem with a lot of people this week looking into this fight, they're looking into those fights you touched on, John, and they're looking to, Riddell's getting up. But it's like, okay, the level of, the elite control grappling and elite wrestling of Gillespie, averaging 7 takedowns per 15 minutes, 49% accuracy. It's like, you touched on it too, Luke. How often are we going to be at space here? I don't think very often. So it's like, how high do you price that KO? I don't think, plus 140, plus 150 is really that fair. So, I like Gillespie here. I think he rolls, and I like the under 2.5 as well. I think a positional KO is there, and I think an arm triangle is there as well.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It would be, like I said, it would be shocking to me. Shocking if Bradley Riddell.
To me, like I don't know how he wins a decision here. Like, other than like rocking him a few times. If he rocks him a few times, he's probably putting him out if that happens. And then I don't think he puts him out, considering how much time and space we're going to have here.
But also, like, I don't think Gregor has like a durability issue. We've seen him eat nukes in there.
It's like a flush head kick. I mean, anybody's going to go down from that.
That combo was beautiful too. Like, that combo was nasty. That combo would put out so many dudes. Dude.
When that happened, I was like, Kevin Lee learned how to strike. He's going to. But yeah, but my point is, like, we've seen him eat bombs from guys who can hit before, and he's looked fine. Like, I mean, I guess Brother Riddell could hit him with that head kick, but I think
I guess another thing to touch on that Kevin Lee fight, because we heard about that earlier this week. Why didn't Gillespie wrestle Kevin Lee? Well, Kevin Lee is kind of unwrestlable early. He's a freakish athlete, freakishly good wrestler, and I mean, I don't think that's really going to happen early. So
I agree completely. I agree 100%. Yeah. So we're endorsing Bradley Riddell this week, or not Bradley? Jesus Christ, we're endorsing
Brad Riddell. Fuck Brad Riddell this week.
We move on. Luke, I'll start with you here. Your boy Kevin Holland taking on Derek Brunson.
All right.
Luke doesn't even reply on your boy yet.
Put your seatbelts on. I'm gonna be the Kevin Holland homer here, because I know we're gonna get a couple contrarian takes. We're not gonna talk about the Thiago Santos fight. We're not gonna talk about the Gerald Meerschaert fight. We're not going to talk about the Darren Stewart fight, and we're not going to talk about the Jack Gray fight. So let's just throw those out the window for 2 seconds. What I will say is, I think that Brunson is a guy who's extremely hittable, despite him actually being a guy that has, I would honestly classify as Brunson being more composed than he has historically in some of his spots. But we have still seen moments of old school Derek Brunson where he throws the shit out the window. His The one thing that has not changed is when he does come in, his chin is still straight up in the air. That is the one thing that has not changed. His reckless nature has toned down a tad. I concede that. So my big thing here is that if, Brunson doesn't kill him early, doesn't, come with this uber wrestling heavy game plan, which I'm assuming he probably will. My big contrarian take is, can Brunson wrestle him for 25 minutes? Because to be honest, we haven't not really seen that. Kevin Holland, yes, has been taken down. 52% takedown defense, has been controlled on his back, will play off his back. I get that 100%. But even outside of, even if when you've looked in the scenarios when Brunson is extensively wrestling, his control is not good. Outside of Shabazian, where he actually finished him late, Brunson's not finishing anybody on the ground. I think the most amount of control time I've seen within the last 5 years from him in a fight is less than 2.5 minutes. So the question becomes then, is Kevin Holland playing from his back? Because even if he is in making Brunson work, I think that also makes this fight interesting. If Kevin Holland is working back to his feet, I think Kevin Holland is very live for a KO. I think his technical boxing is better. I think his speed is faster. I don't think he's as big of a pure hitter as Brunson, but I do think his timing is better along with his defense, despite his stats. If you actually look at Kevin Holland, he largely rolls with shots well, blocks a lot of shots, throw optics a little bit out the window. So I'm going to go with my boy, Kevin Holland, via knockout within the first 2 rounds. And I'm fading Brunson wrestling into death for 15 minutes or 25 minutes. Because I don't think Brunson has the gas to wrestle him for 25 minutes. Tinfoil hat, just saying.
Lex, how about you?
You're not even going to join me on the prop, Luke. Come on.
Let's see.
I mate.
Let's see. All right. So I have 2, I think, sneaky good props on this fight. So I have, first is a 0.25 unit stab on Kevin Holland in round 1 at plus 650. And then I have the fight ends in KO at minus 140. So I think that if this fight doesn't end in the first round, if we see, that old Derek Brunson-esque, rush forward, Kevin Holland probably has a good chance to knock him out early. But if this fight gets extended, like you touched on, Luke, Kevin Holland can make him work on the ground if he's getting taken down. So, that can deplete the cardio of Brunson because, we've never seen either of these guys go 25 minutes. So I think the cardio is kind of a huge question mark here. So I think a late KO from either guy's potentially in play. I think an early KO is potentially in play from both guys. But I'm kind of with you. I don't know if Brunson can really wrestle here for 25 minutes. But I don't really want to I don't really want to lay chalk on Holland, but I think a Holland KO plus 160, that's not horrible.
Yeah. I'm with you guys. So, I have a unit and a half on Brunson plus 145. And,
so you're not with us.
Well, no, I'm really finish what I'm saying. God damn it, Legs. To be completely candid, if it was a 3-round fight and Brunson, I was getting near plus 150, I honestly might max him. The thing is, I agree with you guys. I don't really think, Brunson's gas tank started waning pretty heavy at the end of the Heinisch fight. And, his gas tank looked fine against Edmond, but it only went about 11 minutes. And he really got
one-way traffic, too. Sorry.
Yeah, and almost completely one-way traffic in that fight. And, Holland, even if he plays guard, to Luke's point, I'm mostly of the mind that Brunson, who's a very good grappler, will be okay on top if Holland's throwing up subs. But maybe he won't be. But either way, if Brunson's having to do a lot of work in there, that's exhausting. If he's having to do a lot of clinch work, which I think could happen, that's the most exhausting spot there is. I actually low-key think there is, really ugly fight potential here. Because Holland just has slowed down a couple times, and Brunson has too. There's a chance that, come – round 4, if it gets there, that these 2 guys look like 2 gassed out heavyweights and no one's throwing anything, and it's just who wins the clinch fight. And do I think – I'd lean Brunson because of the grappling late in that kind of fight, but I don't know. And also the other concern I have, and it's so narrative-based, but, I'm telling you guys, I've been watching, Brunson's last few fights, and I do think the changes are real, but you can see him battling with his soul to not sprint to people. You can see it in his eyes.
Yeah, you're right, though. You are right, yeah.
There's a moment in the Edmond fight where he, takes off like a bat out of hell when Edmond's on the fence. It's no, Derek, stop! And, Now he's going to be in there with the ultimate shit talker, Kevin Holland, who's going to be poking jokes at him the entire time. And I feel like if they're in space, it's only a matter of time before Brunson's brain breaks and he rushes at him. I honestly,
Kevin just pisses him off too.
Yeah. So it's like those are all big concerns. I guess where I come down to is I think it's like near evens because I do think Brunson has similar level of finishing upside to Holland here, just because Brunson hits very, very hard. If he gets inside on Holland, he's going to be able to land bombs. But by the same token, I think Holland is the much cleaner striker while it's at range. And, Brunson's chin's always in the air. The chance to knock him out is going to be there. I just kind of think in a fight where I favor Holland at range, I give Brunson a significant grappling upside, and both guys have what I would rate at as of now, poor cardio. I can't cap that worse than evens, and so I have to take the poke at Brunson here. But, I don't mind the Holland stab. If he deads him, I wouldn't be shocked at all. Like I said, if he sprints at him, I wouldn't be shocked at all either. So, yeah, I'm betting Brunson, but it'll be fun. I'm pumped for that main event. That's really exciting. And it seems like most of Brunson's fights, outside of the Elias, who's impossible to make look good, but, the Heinisch and Edmund fights were really exciting. So, and every Kevin Holland fight's a thing. So, yeah.
John, what I will say, I know I gave my Kevin Holland homer breakdown, but what I will say, I do think actually from a value perspective, I do think the value is with Brunson is the dog. I think there is a solid case to be made from if you watch, the homer rant. I just went on, disconcede this fight. There are 5 fights out there if you go back and watch to suggest why you can make a very, very solid case for Derek Brunson the fight. So I actually do think the value is with Brunson. But y'all know, love me some my boy Kevin Holland. My Call Big Mouth shirt did not come in before the podcast. I was hoping to make that debut here tonight. But unfortunately, yeah. But still, Mark take slap season coming. Sorry, Cisco. Quote Kevin Holland. Let's go.
Should I give the Manel Cape rant here?
Yeah, do it. You might as well. Let the cat out of
we actually didn't go that long tonight. Do it, John. Go
you guys have seen it. You guys have seen it in the group chat. Okay. If you're out there on Twitter posting about your good Manel Cape bet, get fucked. Okay? You literally watched him basically grapple fucked for the entire first round. He hurt him in the second round. Even Nicolau coming back hurt. Go rewatch the third round. I did. Maybe go rewatch the third round before you make any fucking bold proclamations. He lost 4 minutes and 15 seconds of that round. The 2 knees that supposedly won the round, the first one, Cape literally comes right back at him. The second one, Nicolau throws a spinning elbow right after. Yeah, he was badly hurt. So badly hurt, he landed a spinning elbow less than a second later. Okay, I get Michael Bisping is screaming. The guy is a brainless fucking idiot, okay? Maybe not a brainless idiot, but either way, you were wrong. Let me this way. If Nicolau doesn't get hurt in round 2, you're really comfortable, you made a good bet on Manel Cape, get the fuck out of here, okay? That's it. End rant.
Right.
Anyway.
That was phenomenal, John. That was phenomenal.
Not to mention, all of us were on Nicolau as well. So
yeah.
But it's not even that. You guys know I'm always the guy when I've made a bad bet who's willing to say I've made a bad bet. When I see people throw it out here, I'm not going to say names. I'm not really trying to start drama. But when I see people talking about how they got robbed, it's only a matter of time till it turns. If you think you made a good bet on Manel Cape and it's only a matter of time till it turns, guess what? It's probably not going to turn around anytime soon. Okay, that's all I'm going to say.
And not to mention, Cape was minus 150. A lot of these people were getting him at minus 150. So
yeah, it is what it is. And you could score. You could score the fight for Cape at the end of the day. I wouldn't have an issue with that at all. To be clear, what I am saying though is Cape basically lost by the thinnest of margins in a fight where you saw Nicolau had massive grappling upside in that fight. You're really confident that Cape's going to win that more than 50% of the time? I'm not. I'm pretty happy with the bet that I made. I just thought it was pretty funny. Anyway, I should have started the show with that rant. I thought Kelton was going to give me the platform to do it last night. We didn't recap our picks.
We still got it, boy. We still got the John rant. We got it.
We got 2 John rants.
Anyway, guys, like I said, please drop a like, give us a follow. Look, honestly, if you follow our picks and make money, if you fade our picks and make money, either way, give us a follow. We appreciate it. We'd love to hit 500 subs by summer. We're around 350 right now. Look, we love you guys. We love everybody here. So either way, like I said, we'll keep trying to give out plus EV bets. We'll keep ducking landmines like Gloria DePaula. Keep coming back. As usual, I'm John Stargary. You can find me on Twitter, MMA Fox, with Luke at SWR_betting, and Legs at Legs_the Capper. Good luck this weekend, guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye.